IPS is way better than VA, right? Yeah, that's what everyone still thinks. But right now, that might actually be wrong. To the point where VA might actually have the advantage now. For a long time, VA was basically the panel nobody wanted. If you were competitive, you went TN. If you wanted good colors, you went IPS. And VA just sat in the middle, doing neither very well. It wasn't as fast as TN, and it didn't look as good as IPS, so why would you even buy it? Sure, it had better contrast, but what's the point of deep blacks if everything else looks worse? And because of that, IPS basically became the better VA. In fact, there's a good chance you're watching this on an IPS right now, because that's what everyone recommends. Honestly, a lot of people recommending IPS haven't even tried a good VA. If you look at most monitor guides out there today, what do they all recommend besides OLED? That's right, IPS. Even I recommend IPS a lot, but there's a reason for that. Over the past few years, IPS panels have changed a lot. They got faster, a lot faster. What used to be good enough for gaming is now actually competitive. We're talking higher refresh rates, better response times, and way less ghosting than before. Some IPS monitors are now pushing 500 Hz and even 1000 Hz in certain modes, which is honestly insane. And it's not just refresh rate, response times improved as well, getting close to real 1 millisecond. Back when TN dominated for speed, IPS wasn't even close. Now, it's taken that spot, only really losing to OLED at the high end. Now, when it comes to its weaknesses, not much has changed. IPS glow is still there, and contrast is still pretty weak. It still looks awful when you use it to play games in a dark room. There are some improvements like Dell's IPS Black, which helps with contrast a bit, but when it comes to contrast, VA is still king. But here's where things start to change. VA panels didn't stay the same either, and in some ways, they improved even more. And this is the part most people still haven't caught up to. One of the biggest statements you heard everywhere at the time is that VA has worse colors than IPS. And yeah, that used to be true, but today, that doesn't really hold up anymore. Because of the higher contrast alone, VA panels can actually make colors look richer, sometimes even more than IPS, especially in darker scenes. But I already know what you're thinking. It's not the colors, it's the smearing. And yeah, VA can still have black smearing, but if it's so bad that you can't stop noticing it, that's not VA being VA, that's just a bad VA panel. And this is where everything flips nowadays, because VA today isn't bad anymore, it's just inconsistent. Some VA panels are genuinely amazing, and some are still terrible, which means buying a VA right now is kind of a gamble. And that's exactly why, even though I liked VA, I still recommend IPS most of the time, because IPS is predictable and you know what you're getting. With VA, you might get something amazing or something you regret, so it's not that VA is worse, it's just riskier. And there's one more thing that changed this whole discussion: miniled. Because of it, even IPS panels can get much better contrast thanks to local dimming, which was always their biggest weakness. So that big advantage VA used to have isn't as big as it used to be anymore. But at the same time, VA with miniled can look even better because it already had higher native contrast to begin with. So when you combine that with local dimming, the blacks just look deeper and more natural overall. When you see those miniled versus OLED comparisons where the blacks look surprisingly close, chances are that's a VA panel. But of course, miniled or not, it's still VA, so black smearing can still be there. Then again, that depends on the specific monitor, which just makes the whole IPS versus VA debate even less straightforward. Just to clear something up, because a lot of people get this wrong, miniled isn't a panel type. You can have IPS miniled and VA miniled. It's just the backlight technology. If you're looking into miniled monitors, you probably care about HDR, and this is where panel type makes a big difference. You see, HDR is built on two main pillars: brightness for the highlights and contrast. And this is exactly where IPS and VA separate. Because of the lower contrast on IPS panels, HDR can sometimes look a bit flatter, especially in darker scenes. While on VA, thanks to the deeper blacks, highlights stand out much more, which makes the overall image look more impactful. Now, a common question is, does mini LED make them equal for HDR? And the answer is not really. It helps a lot, but it doesn't completely close the gap. If you put a VA mini LED next to an IPS mini LED, you'll often still notice more blooming and light leakage on the IPS, while VA tends to keep dark areas more controlled. And something else that matters a lot here is the number of dimming zones. The more zones a monitor has, the more precise the lighting becomes. But here's the thing. VA has an advantage even here, because it already starts with higher native contrast. So even with fewer zones, it can still deliver a strong HDR experience. Which is why, once again, it all comes down to the specific monitor. Now comes the big question. Which one is actually better, and which one should you buy? First, let's get this straight. There's no better panel anymore. It all comes down to what you actually need. If you ask me, I'd probably pick VA because I play a lot of story-driven games, and those deep blacks make a huge difference for immersion. But if you ask someone who mainly plays competitive games and cares about speed, they'll go with IPS without even thinking twice. So here's how you should look at it. If you want something safe that just works for everything, go IPS. If you care more about immersion and deep blacks, go VA. And if you want the best of both worlds and have the budget for it, then OLED is the way to go. At the end of the day, it's not about which panel is better, it's about which one is better for you. But with how fast things are changing right now, it does make you wonder. IPS is getting faster, VA is getting better, OLED is getting cheaper. What happens next? Will one of them eventually become irrelevant? Or are they all going to keep evolving side by side? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to make sure you're picking the right monitor, check out my best monitor picks right now, here, and here for the best budget picks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.